All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So, as we stand right now, the Jets are in second place in the AFC East, 6-3 overall, and we're on our bye week, right? We got the New England Patriots next week. That's going to be a big matchup in Foxborough, the rematch from a couple weeks ago. I cannot wait for it. I seriously cannot wait for it. It's going to be awesome. But I actually just got done watching the Robert Saleh interview with CBS Sports. It was like 20-30 minutes. It was really long, really in depth with Josina Anderson. I'll have it linked down below in the description box. I mean, if you're a Jet fan, if you're, a Saleh fan, you're going to absolutely love this interview. And in this one, I just wanted to kind of break things down a little bit, talk about some of the main takeaways. And I think the thing that just instantly stands out, right, and we all know this as Jets fans at this point, 49ers fans could speak to this as well. Saleh's a player's coach. He is a player's coach, and that helps in so many different avenues. Right? I mean, number one, you could just tell that the players are fully bought in on Sunday. Guys are running around there making plays. Nobody's taking plays off. Nobody's giving it, a half-ass effort or anything like that. It's really fun to watch. It kind of reminds me of the Todd Bowles defense, the Rex Ryan defense. Everybody's fully invested. Everybody's bought in. It really seems like there's a two-way street when it comes to trust, right? The players are fully bought into the scheme. They're bought into the plays. They're bought in on what they're told to do, and vice versa. The coaches have faith, they have trust in these players to go out and actually execute. And I think it's really important. Another thing that really just in my opinion was impressive was that he was deflecting the praise, deflecting the credit onto the players. He was not sitting up there saying, oh yeah, the Jets are winning because of my system, my culture. They're winning because I'm here. No, it wasn't that at all. It was, because Quinnen Williams is playing at an all-pro level, because Garrett Wilson is a star coming onto the scene, and Sauce Gardner's production. I mean, you look at some of the coaches that have ego problems, guys like Matt Nagy, Matt Patricia, Adam Gase to a certain degree. Guys that might point the finger. It's not my fault. It's his fault. It's his fault. Didn't execute here. Guys that'll separate themselves from the team, especially when things are, going downhill, when things are not looking good. Some coaches will almost individualize themselves from the team. Like, hey, it's not my fault. You could easily pick that up in press conferences and interviews and whatnot. Look, players can also pick up on that. And I think one of the things, we hear the term all the time, players coach. We all know what that means, but I think it's really important to understand why. Why is a guy a players coach? I think trust. I think really that's the bottom line here. If a player can trust a coach to not only just put them in in a great position to have success and to develop them over the long term, but to also know that he's not going to be thrown under the bus if he makes a stupid decision, if he makes a bad play, if things start going downhill, the coach is going to stick with them. And I think when we start looking into that specific category, right, the trust between coaches and players, Saleh checks that box. I mean, we could even, again, point to the former players, guys that have played for Saleh back in San Fran. We can look at all these new free agent acquisitions that are coming over to the green and white, due in large part because he's our head coach. And branching off of that point, he talked about Denzel Mims. This is a guy who obviously high pick, second round pick a couple years ago, hasn't really had that big of an impact under the Saleh regime, but he went on and on about Denzel's recent performance, about how he comes in and works hard every single day, and really that he loves him, right? He loves Denzel Mims despite the trade request. And speaking of trade requests, of course, Elijah Moore came up, and Saleh had his back. Saleh had his back through and through. It was almost like he was talking about like a son or something like that, like just a great young man. Like, it was awesome to watch. But the one thing that really personally I felt like stood out is the fact that it's almost looking like Mike LaFleur, Saleh, they're thinking about putting Elijah Moore in the slot a lot more. And it's kind of funny because this is what you guys have wanted really since Moore has been drafted, to play him in the slot. That's where he had success at the college level. Granted, he can line up outside, he can have success out there, but really, if you take Elijah Moore's quickness, his route running abilities, his ability to hurt you down the field, so like shooting him up through the seam, I think you can do a lot of damage with Elijah Moore on your offense. I think Moore, his skill set alone can strike fear in defensive coordinators. He's not a guy that Belichick, that McDermott will just look at and say, yeah, he's irrelevant. Now he is irrelevant if he's not playing. And that was kind of touched on by Josina Anderson. And she was basically saying what's going on with the Moore situation. What's the plan moving forward despite the trade request? And Saleh said, hey, we're trying to figure out ways to utilize him in the slot. And of course, the Jets have a lot of talented wide receivers in Garrett Wilson and Braxton Berrios. And Corey Davis is hurt right now, and, Denzel Mims. But that was really, for me, highlighted. If Elijah Moore is going to be played the majority of the time in the slot from here on out, personally, I think it's a really, really good idea, really smart idea. And also, when we look at how Zach Wilson plays, when he has success, it's when he gets the football out of his hands quickly. If he's throwing the football underneath 3 seconds, his numbers skyrocket. He looks on paper like a much, much better quarterback. And if we can get a guy in the slot, essentially crossing Zach Wilson's face a lot throughout the course of a game, and who yards wise is typically going to be closer to the quarterback, I think, and by the way, matched with Moore's skill set of being able to separate from corners, being able to snap off good routes, I think it makes a ton of sense. It makes a lot of sense to line Elijah up in the slot more. And, even in like shotgun situations with like 4 wide, they could take a page out of like Mike Leach at the Mississippi State offense. He's the king of mesh routes. Sending those 2 on mesh routes, I feel like would be just a disaster, just a complete headache for defensive coordinators to try to guard, try to go up against. I mean, both guys can really hurt defenses underneath. So I'm really happy that Saleh, it's not just the status quo. It's not like, oh yeah, he requested a trade. Now he has to prove himself in practice. Now he has to, jump through hoops to, regain our trust. Nothing like that. The Jets said that they're not trading him. Elijah Moore in his recent interviews has seemed okay. He doesn't seem disgruntled or pissed off or, I want to get out of here immediately. Nothing like that. And it's just really cool to hear Saleh, right, the head man in charge, say, no, we love him. He's our guy. He's a Jet. We want him here. He fits the system. Like, this is our guy. We drafted him in the 2nd round because we loved him. And, he's here to stay. And last but not least, Zach Wilson, of course, came up as well. A lot of really good questions. And much like Denzel, much like Moore, and much with the players that are having a lot of success on this football team, Saleh had his back once again. He was not giving answers like, yeah, as an organization, we hope he turns it around and we're going to stick with them. It was more so, when we've called on Zach Wilson's number to make throws, to make plays, he's done it. And Zach's our guy. And to just, again, to hear that conviction, to hear the trust in the players is huge in my opinion. It is absolutely massive for not only just the short term, but the long term as well. Another point that he also talked about a lot was just staying in the moment. You could just tell he didn't really want to talk about, like the receipts comment because it was in the past, and the playoffs because it's in the future. It's just all about week to week. Week to week. It kind of comes from Pete Carroll, back with the Seattle Seahawks. Just go 1-0 every week. If you can do that and you're not looking ahead, you're not dwelling on the past, crazy things can happen. Special things can happen. And funny enough, Saleh came from Seattle with Pete Carroll, and he actually talked about him later on in the interview, and a bunch of other great coaches that were on that staff. But I think it's important to kind of keep your head down, just that tunnel vision, just focus on what you got to do week in, week out. And, I've said it a million times. This is, in my opinion, the most important stretch of games when we look at overall weight in the conference and the division, with the Pats, Bills, Pats. If the Jets could win 2 of the 3, I said this weeks ago, I think this team's going to the playoffs. If this team can get 2 out of the 3 wins, this team, I feel like, not 100% is going to be a lock, but the chances are going to be really, really high, especially with all of these other teams like underachieving, like the Broncos and the Raiders. Pittsburgh Steelers is another team I felt like was going to be a lot better. Cleveland. There's a lot of teams with like 2-3 wins. I thought at this point they would at least have 4, 5, 6 maybe. So I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Again, that interview is listed down below in the description box. I highly recommend checking it out. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. By the way, what's your take on this whole Elijah Moore maybe positional change? It's not like he's moving a running back or corner or anything like that. It's just his slot. But I do think we could see a boom in production, assuming he gets on the field here. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.